Oh. It's in a pod mode, even though it's powered on. It's gracious, it's loud. Okay, I'm gonna turn the sound back on for you.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians, and welcome to the Rotary Club of Gainesville meeting at the Cade Museum. If you're watching on YouTube, please register your participation by sending an email to info@rotarygainesville.org. And as a reminder, I ask that you please at this time silence your cell phones. Joining us at the podium, Pete Enwall will lead us in the song and pledge.
A woman walked into an eyeglass store and she went up to the clerk and she said, "I need to return these glasses. They just don't work. They're defective." He said, "Ma'am, what seems to be the problem?" She said, "Well, I bought these for my husband, but he still doesn't see it my way." We're going to sing America the Beautiful today. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains, majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Join me in pledging allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic to which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pete. And now for our invocation, Lori Vidal.
Greetings. Let's pray together. As we think through the writings of Holy Writ, we come across a situation where the best wine was served when it normally was the worst wine. And as we think about the reality of the quality of life that is offered, when we hear of something like that, it makes us realize how powerful and how special it is to have the lives that we have, the opportunity to live in such a sense of abundance. And with that thought, we thank you that we can come together continually focusing upon the call to service above self. And we ask you now, as we meet again, and as we think about the qualities of life that we have the opportunity to live, we thank you that we can share that with others. And so now we come together again this day, and we ask you to help us to build goodwill and better friendship by the sharing of those things that we have. And we pray in your name, amen.
Thank you, Lori. You may be seated. And at this time, if guests and visiting Rotarians will remain standing, Jason will come around with the microphone for introductions.
Hi, Rotarians. I am here with my very good friend who knows a lot of you. His name is Patrick Dodds. He's the Executive Director of Bread of the Mighty Food Bank, and I want you to give him a warm welcome.
Rotarians, I am pleased to, my name is Jim Craig, and I'm pleased to be introducing the speaker today, Bridget Boswell, and her lovely husband, Julian. They will give you well, Lori, I want to thank you very much for the plug with regard to the wine, because as many of you are aware, you're tasting wine right now.
All right. And we have once again from the other side of the world, from India, Penny Kapoor. Please welcome her again. We're going to get her over on this side of the continent permanently one of these days.
Excuse me, but Jim Craig, would you stand up for a minute? I have the pleasure to you, Paul Harris Fellow plus 10, who hasn't been here in a long time. He's been fighting a good fight, and I'm so happy for him. I just wanted to let you know he's here.
Thank you. We're so happy everyone's able to join us. And now coming to the podium, Helen Gilstrom.
You got to know who to pay to get 2 minutes up here today. What I wanted to tell you is why I do Indy 500, because, you know, I wanted to indulge me. I want to tell you about my daughter. 34 years ago, she was a student of Marcia Eubanks. Not long after that, she decided she wanted to be a teacher. She's taught history, economics, all kinds of things. She's now an assistant curriculum director at a high school outside of Houston. Her focus is to get students to cross the stage at graduation. That's all her and her team do. She's a teacher, but she's a social worker, she's a mediator, she's a coach, she's a consultant, and she's an educator. She deals with students, parents, other teachers. She deals with family lives, curriculum, English as a second language, truancy, students who help support their family through their jobs, and a myriad of other dimensions that I couldn't begin to tell you about. The challenge is huge, and she and all of her other cohorts continue to get their students an education. She's no different than any teacher or staff or educator here in Alachua County. I don't have to tell you our community and our systems are broken, but I will tell you that it's not the teachers. It's not the healthcare staff. They're on the front line. They're doing the best they can. They help with accidents. They help with lack of clothing, lack of underwear, illnesses, and they pay out of their pockets when they need to give something to their students. That's why I do Indy 500. This is the last week of the drive. If you want to give, you click on the thing, bulletin.
Hi, I'm Randy.
You can go to Amazon and order. You can go shopping. You can go to Target, Dollar Store, Walmart. Belk's has a deal and there's no sales tax, and we'll always take cash. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you for sharing that with us. We appreciate everything you're doing. Send our appreciation to your daughter as a teacher, and we thank all teachers out there. And now, Susan Maston is going to introduce our next storytelling.
Back in May, Nancy Hart and I first introduced the idea of sharing brief video stories of moments that have redirected the course of our lives. We envisioned these stories as engaging ways to know each other just a little bit more. On that same day, Dr. Randy Caton walked right up to say these encouraging words, "I have a story to share of a turning point in my life." Today, we're happy to share his story with you.
Hi, I'm Randy Caton. For those of you who don't know me, I am a retired oral and maxillofacial surgeon. I came to practice in Gainesville in 1972 to join John Coker. John was a member of the Rotary Club at that time, and I think he's still a member, although he can't attend anymore. He is now 93 years old and doesn't get around too much. But it was a turning point in my life when I started to think about where I wanted to live. And we wanted to live in Florida. My wife and I were both from Florida, and we were educated in Georgia, but we wanted to get back home. And so we went around the country, went around the state. I went around with her father-in-law. We loaded up a bottle of gin and a couple of tonics, and we took on the state of Florida. I stopped first in Jacksonville, where one of the surgeons there, who didn't need a new associate, told me that John Coker in Gainesville, Florida, was looking for somebody. Well, Gainesville wasn't on my radar, but we came here and met John, and instantly we thought, this is the place to be. But I did my due diligence and kept running around the state. John had been in practice in Gainesville since 1960. So I joined him at a time when he had gotten so busy that he needed some help. And I needed a place to work. I didn't have the confidence to go out on my own and practice, but I wanted to be with somebody who could mentor me. And John was a marvelous mentor. He and his wife were just so welcoming and wonderful. We had so much in common. We both had gone to Emory. Our wives had both gone to Agnes Scott College in Decatur, Georgia. And we were all Methodists, so it just seemed to be a perfect match. And so we came here, and it turned out to be a great place to raise our children, a great place to grow, and we have been here for, well, my youngest son was born here the year after we got here, and he turned 50 yesterday. And so it's been a wonderful place for us. And it was a real turning point to start my career here in Gainesville, to become a member of the staff at Alachua General Hospital, and subsequently a charter member of the North Florida Hospital staff. And it's just been my real joy to have been part of this Rotary Club. Another quick little turning point is I was president of the club in '86 when women were allowed to join by the national office. And it was certainly a turning point in time in Rotary, because when that happened, the Rotary service in this town and around the world went way up. So thank you for supporting me all these years in Rotary, and I send all you great blessings. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Randy, and thank you, Susan, for coordinating. And now, at this time, please help me welcome our president, Linda Reinhardt, to the podium.
Hello, everybody. Before we get on to our speaker, we do have some quick business to take care of. It is that time to approve nominations for the foundation board, and then so hopefully we can get the foundation board going in the next couple of weeks. Presenting the following names to you for approval for our representatives on the Rotary Foundation board, and if you are here, if you could just stand really quickly. Hawes Adams, Matthew Brady, Jason Shank, Jenny Van Hart, Colleen Keene, Jay Nordquist, and Kathy Pierce. You can sit down. So all in favor of approving these nominations, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you guys very much for your service. We'll move on. And now I'm going to bring up Jim Craig to introduce today's speaker.
I think I'd like to take a second and tell you how touching it is to be here again. You're a great group of people. And I'm going to segue back to 1947, after World War II. Well, let me back up for a second. Rotary, as we're well aware, is divided into three different segments, and that is the club level, the district level, and the international level. The international level has always been looking ahead And one of the things that really concerned Rotary after World War II was there anything that Rotary could do that would help prevent a war like World War II ever occurring again? And one of the ideas that they came up with was the Ambassadorial Scholar Program. The idea being taking the brightest and the smartest and moving them around the world so that they could go to universities somewhere else and make friends and be able to influence misunderstandings in a positive way before we would get ourselves into the pickle we did during the 30s in Europe. The Ambassadorial Scholarship Program was keenly supported by this Rotary Club because it required that we contribute approximately $25,000 per student at the time. We had a plethora, is that correct? No, that's not. Help me out. A plethora of ambassadorial scholars during the 80s. And Phyllis and myself were fortunate because we were able to act as the sponsor, the liaison for a number of these scholars. One of them in particular had already become a veterinary in South Africa. She made the program and came to the University of Florida School of Veterinary Sciences at a time that the school was undergoing one of those plateau increases. So they were going from one level up to another level. And I think a lot of it was the fact that we had a couple of students come here at that particular time, and Bridget was one of those students. What she wants to do today is give you a follow-up. This is what happened because she went back to South Africa, and I'm going to tell you right now, there's no way in hell I would have gone back to South Africa in the end of the 80s. None. But she went back to South Africa, got involved in South Africa, and has contributed to a lot of the stability that is there. And oh, by the way, her mother got reprimanded for violating the apartheid laws when she was a teacher. So we're going to let Bridget tell her story, and I hope you join with me in welcoming her back because it's so good to see her again.
Hello, everyone. I don't think I've improved much in my public speaking skills over the years, but it's very lovely to be back with this club, and particularly one as generous as yours was. In my time as a Rotary student here, I lost my father in South Africa to suicide. That was due to the droughts in South Africa. And this club kindly also sent me back home to be with my family at that time and brought me back to actually finish my scholarship. And then I went on to work as a student in the university system and finish my master's and my PhD course requirements. Brendan, we can start with the presentation. So why am I here today? Really just to, okay, let me start here rather. So I live now on a wine farm in South Africa. I married a wine producer, Julian, some 28 years ago, darling. Yeah. So we are presenting, amongst other things, 3 of our wines that we produce on the farm. We produce about 15 or 16 different wines and combinations of some varietals and some monovarietals. And we have tried to penetrate the American market now 3 times. This will be our 4th attempt, and hopefully 4th time lucky. So we look forward to you all enjoying the 3 that we've brought today for you to taste, and to hopefully ask your local wine shop or distributor for the wine and prompt them to encourage their distributor in turn or their wholesaler to bring it into the country. It really is a very difficult market for South Africa to penetrate because you have no natural relationship with South Africa. There's no history really here, and yet it's a very attractive market to us. So hopefully this day will help our cause on this front. And I will probably have it later in the talk, but we do employ 75 people on the farm. And so all contributions in terms of wine purchases help that cause too. Unlike America, we have a 50% unemployment rate of the under 35s and a 35% unemployment rate overall. So jobs are terribly scarce and we have to work very hard to create them. And literally every cent that you send South Africa's way really makes a big difference, whether it be in donation or in purchases of our goods. Thank you. Right, so the meat of the matter today, and I'm going to have to look a little bit at the presentation myself. Rotary enabled me to achieve my MSc in equine reproduction, and I went back to South Africa, indeed, as Jim has said, not reluctantly. In fact, even though we were going through that huge turmoil in the 80s, I always knew South Africa would succeed. It is a country of can-do attitude. We all get on very well with each other, actually, although we had these racist policies. There is far less racism there than one would expect. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but certainly we're often surprised at the racism that exists here compared to what we were experiencing even at that time. So I went back and practiced as a vet. I had great success there as a vet, actually. I was employed by a racing practice and to expand their breeding side, because that is a very lucrative part of veterinary medicine. And I had the good fortune of being the veterinarian of one of our big racehorse winners of our biggest races. That was all very exciting and rewarding. And eventually I met Julian during that time, and we got married and had a brief time in the UK, after which he said he did not want to ever live in the UK again, and we would go back to South Africa for good. So that was a good move for me, as much as it was for him. We had 2 children and went on with farming, slowly growing our asset base by really upgrading farms and selling on. And we even thought this farm that we purchased more recently would have to have the same kind of history. But we've managed to hang on to it. Julian drew in some very wealthy English partners, which has really been wonderful in taking the edge off farming, especially when one is dependent on climate, as we are. And we've now moved into diversification into almonds, with the Americans having to pull out a lot of your almonds due to the drying up of the Colorado River. There is apparently a small gap in the market. It doesn't seem like it's very big, but anyway, it is there. And our partners are involved in cocoa trading. And so there is a market in the chocolate industry for the almonds. Julian, darling, would you like to come and just talk about the Chenin that you're going to pour now? So we have, Vondeling is our main wine label, and Julian and I have our own personal label called Bowood, which falls under the Vondeling stable, and we've brought you 2 of our wines to taste today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Boswell. Wonderful to see you all here today. I'm not going to steal my wife's thunder in any way at all. The wine that you tasted, some of you when you came in, was a rosé, dry, refreshing, and delicious. And the wine we'll bring round now while Bridget's talking is a Chenin Blanc, which has spent a little bit of time in wood. It's a great food wine. And then finally, we'll bring you our national grape, which is a Pinotage, which I hope you enjoy as well. So I'll just pot around and see if anybody wants to try some Chenin Blanc. Okay.
There's a question there. Do we need one? No, just a glass. Pinotage, in case Julian doesn't get back to talk again, is a specific South African varietal developed long ago, over 200 years ago, as a hybrid between Pinot Noir and the Hermitage grape from France. So it has characteristics of both of those, and this particular sample is a very good specimen. It routinely wins, or shall I say, gains the top 10 recognition. They don't give you a winner. But in South Africa, how many Pinotages are there, Jage? How many Pinotage in South Africa? Okay. And we routinely fall into the top 10. So you know that you're getting a good specimen of that varietal, which you won't taste anywhere else in the world. So certainly if you want to deliver something different to a dinner party, this is the one to do. Okay, this isn't meant to be a sales pitch. It's really meant to give you, as Jim has suggested, a very big thank you for the abundance that was prayed about earlier, with which I've been able to live. Really, the Rotary opportunity offered to me to come here was something too marvelous for words. And while I kicked and screamed at some of the PhD course subjects I had to do, which were, amongst others, statistics, grant proposal writing, women in Africa development, I was questioning my professors through and through of what on earth has this got to do with being an equine veterinarian in breeding work. But these have been the courses that really have stood by me after children. So I felt very strongly about raising children and making it a full-time job. My life as a veterinarian was extremely fulfilling, and I must confess, neither my husband nor my children would have had a look in had I considered continuing with my veterinary profession. So I gave up veterinary at that time, and we expanded and upscaled our farming. We eventually bought a bigger farm closer to Cape Town, and in 2004 I built this house while my husband built the winery. That was a very lovely learning curve. Took us a year, but and fortunately we were on different building projects, otherwise I don't think we'd be here together. Children, at that time, 2006, Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth was filmed around the world, or shown in cinemas around the world, and that prompted me to think very deeply about the planet that my children were going to be left with once I had conducted my life according to how we'd all been raised, to consume and to spend and to really strip the environment. And so I turned my hand to environmental work initially. And then as they went to school, the environmental work focused more and more towards education and training in the environmental sector. And so I moved to, obviously I got coerced into being on the boards of all three schools that our children were involved in. And certainly for high school, this is my son, he turned out to be a musical child, and went to a choir school in South Africa called the Drakensberg Boys Choir School. It travels overseas annually and has had a couple of tours to America. So I don't know if any of you have ever heard of them, but they are really the Southern Hemisphere's response to the Vienna Boys Choir. So that gave him a wonderful grounding in music, and he's just graduated last month with his master's in composition for film and screen, and hopes to find himself back here. My daughter studied molecular biology and genetics, and she is just starting a gap year abroad, having worked with Julian in the wine industry. the last 2 years since COVID. And so the children are now well on their way. So once I conceived of PSI projects, it started off as part of Berg's Sustainability Initiative, but this has been its vision since the outset, to create a successful model of sustainable development promoted by profitable enterprises and non-profitable projects. The non-profitable projects, unfortunately, tend to take the greater focus, cooperating in the partnership that oversees responsible management of natural resources and biodiversity, and address poverty in the context of good governance. We obviously have drawn in lots of partners over the years. I just quickly flash them up here. Pioneer Foods is a very big company in South Africa. Vondeling is a smallish company, and then various conservation organizations, WWF. I've only just put a few up there, but we have enjoyed a lot of support from partners and collaborators. I entered the environmental arena by addressing the issue of fire. You have your very big California fires, and we have very similar in South Africa. We've introduced our government has introduced some very good legislation, which I believe America has commenced discussions over, because we involve civil society in really assisting in early fire prevention, detection, and the fire protection associations are legislated to do that job. So we had not yet in our area fulfilled the requirement to have a protection association, and so when I transitioned to environment, this is where I started my focus in bringing the farmers and the conservationists together, learning from each other, and we established the Fire Protection Association, and now only after 25 years achieved what we were always trying to achieve, the exemption from fire breaks. So basically in South Africa, you have to, as a landowner, you have to have a fire break around each of your properties. And if you have a big conservation section like we all do, and all our conserved areas border on each other, if I might mention that 75% of conserved land in the Western Cape is privately owned. So if you put fire breaks around everyone's properties, you'd end up with no conserved area, because everything would be fire breaks. So you apply for this exemption from fire breaks, and the Fire Protection Association is essential to achieve that exemption, and also then to maintain your insurance for your homestead and crops. So we successfully established that, and it's now running very nicely. Sure, I'll just run through the active projects and the projects that we've completed, just so that you can see the extent of the work I've managed to achieve and also fundraise for. We commenced with the botanical survey in 2011. This was a R1 million project. What's that, about $20,000? No, $50,000, sorry, times 20 at the moment, but probably more like $100,000 at that time, when our rand was much stronger. We're going through a big collapse of the rand, and actually for that reason also your dollars go so much further in South Africa, you can't believe it. I've just paid for a meal in Calgary in one of your nice hotels what someone would earn a month of my workers in South Africa. So the rand really is very weak at the moment, and you'll have a lovely, lovely holiday if you come there. So we completed the botanical survey, which resulted in a coffee table book, which I brought to show you. It's a huge coffee table book, but that suitcase is still lost somewhere in Gatwick Airport. So I'll just move on. We did an ornithological survey in 2012. We've continued. Vondeling, my husband's farm, has just built a bird hide, and we're working with the University of Cape Town Zoology Department to run bird ringing and twitching courses there. And then we did an entomology survey in 2013 to address the concern about the fact that, I don't know if you're aware, that 60% of the world's insects have disappeared over the last 10 years. And we're trying to understand why that's happening. So that was the reason for that. The fire project I've talked about, we now do annual wildfire training amongst the workers so that they are ready for fire. And that is primarily because farmers or landowners are the first call. It's not like here where you immediately call the fire services. Landowners take responsibility until the fire services arrive. So everyone has fire training. We've done recycling, mostly because a lot of farmers burnt their rubbish, and that was a start to fires, but also because bits of glass and tin, as you all know, are often the reason why fires start. The alien management I'll talk about in a minute. We did an erosion project which enabled us to access the big fund we got to do the alien management. But also what has been helpful is we have become very active in supporting civilians in inappropriate developments, mining, sand mining, landowners that choose to do things without correct authorization. And that has been very helpful because we've become known as an area where there is a group and you don't want to mess with us, which is hugely helpful before people even try to do something that's outside of the law. I'm not going to go through all those. Our environmental awareness and response project ended up in my presenting at a parliamentary portfolio committee hearing in 2014. A number of recommendations as to how the government can address the fact that our environmental legislation is failing us as citizens. I don't know what the case is with your legislation in environment, but often we find that with all its good intentions, it still doesn't happen that the environment is looked after. So we were able to influence that process. We have tried to develop some tourism in our area. It's had a lot of hiccups, but we continue to work at that. We've had a couple of farmers' days. We've held music concerts, especially where it's involved schools of the children's schools. We're doing hiking and e-biking project at the moment. My husband and Vonderling built a church on St. Clement Church, which we consecrated with the Anglican Church, which is the equivalent of your Episcopalian Church. And we run services there once a month, a weekly service for the workers on Wednesdays, and then obviously Christmas and Easter. I spoke earlier about what we're doing with UCT. The 4-year, 1 million rand project I've spoken about already. These are just some of the samples of the flowers that emerged after a very big wildfire. The map on the left shows the extent of our mountain. It's 4,000 hectares, and 3/4 of it burnt, and we chronicled the emergence of the fynbos over 18 months. We were able to expand this program into collecting botanical samples for our herbarium at Kirstenbosch, which saves all South African plant material, and we found over 900 specimens, which, as I've said here, represents more than the entire flora of North America in terms of biodiversity. The southern tip of Africa missed the ice age, and so it houses 1/6 of the world's plant species, which is why it makes our responsibility to preserve it all the more important for future generations. I said I would return to this National Resources Management Program, which was funded by the Department of Environment Affairs. This was the biggest project I've done to date. It was 19 million rand, which I suppose in today's dollars is $1 million. It was more like 2 million at the time. It was a very big project. It was involved collaboration. We had to come up with co-funding, and we created 90 sustainable jobs at the time. The project was awarded funding a second time. But at that time, our corruption had really set in South Africa, and our new state president Zuma had absconded with a lot of the sort of funding that did these kind of projects, or reallocated it in other places. And so unfortunately the project came to an end. But it nonetheless upskilled many workers. I still am in touch with a lot of workers who have found work in other professions. And really it was a wonderful project to be involved in. In COVID, we had to rethink our strategy. Fortunately, just before COVID, people had started approaching me, please help us with fundraising, please help us run our nonprofit. And what I was finding is that many people struggle with fundraising because they have no governance or inadequate governance. So I agreed that we would assist them, provided that over the time we would improve their governance so that they could stand on their own again. And we've done this now with 4 organizations: Champagne Valley Trust, Kwetu Epworth, and ourselves. There's another one I didn't write on there. Who is it? Anyway, the point is that that we've now assisted these organizations to get their governance in order. We've assisted them through, we established a very helpful, I don't know if any of you are aware of global giving here in America. Can I have a show of hands? Yeah. They really do a wonderful job of auditing and managing projects around the world and helping us to raise funds from people like yourselves to our projects and giving you nice feedback, quarterly feedback on what is happening with your money. And so I've introduced these organizations to the Global Giving platform, and then over time spin them off to run their own platforms and continue when they have governance up to the level that Global Giving requires. Our completed projects, well, I spoke about the earlier Department of Environment Affairs project. Last year we completed a lovely project which looked at transforming education for sustainable futures. We were funded to participate in 2, this was a very collaborative program. It was a £5 million UKRI funded program around the world, 4 countries. South Africa had 20 projects. They whittled down to 14 in the end, but we participated in 2 of them. In partnership with the University of Johannesburg, we looked at school principals as conduits for sustainable livelihoods in agricultural communities in rural South Africa, and in partnership with the Institute of Natural Resources, we did this lovely project where we looked at combining agriculture and choirs singing about it, because I feel very strongly, Africa's strengths are in music, art, and drama. And of course, that's the first thing they take out of the curriculum, are their strengths. And so we would like to see them reintroduced into the prep school curriculum. And so we have been doing these tower gardens, and children sing about them in English. We teach a lot about environment and climate change and conservation through the songs. And then, interestingly, the community have been very involved too in the gardening aspects and wanting the garden model for themselves. The tower garden is a very beautiful model where you have a water-constrained area. You build it up as this almost a barrel-shaped thing with a central column of stones, which is very easy to construct with buckets as you build it up with material. And as you can see, the children there are pouring water down the tower of stones in the middle, which allows one to use very contaminated water that you've bathed in and washed your dishes in, and then you can still pour it down the column without touching any vegetable leaf, so that it then is used by the vegetable through a filtered system of the earth and the compost and the various materials they've packed into the tower. So that has been that is an ongoing project, and we are currently fundraising to continue this one for next year through Global Giving. Fortunately, my daughter is now showing interest in these projects and this field. She's about, as I've said, to start a year of travel, but she is a proposed board member. My particular interest is moving more into the first 1,000 days, because as we work in these education projects, we realize a lot of children are constrained in terms of learning because they don't have a self-worth attached to themselves. And I was told by a psychologist, and I believe it is commonly known amongst psychologists, that a child's self-worth is mostly established in the first year of life through nurture and through deep eye gaze and through response to the lack of abandonment or the fear of abandonment. So that is a real problem in South Africa. We've got this perfect storm where women have been empowered. We have the state endorsing a single parent household. So the mother who is now working has a baby. As a single parent, it goes straight into creche, and it hardly has a look-in from its mum or dad. In fact, very few children have contact with the father. And then we're the only country in the world, I believe, that pays 16-year-olds to have babies. So that's a big problem also. We have children as young as 10 falling pregnant in schools. And last year in Natal alone, where in the province I'm working, there were over 75,000 babies born to school children. So it's an insurmountable problem. Okay, I must wrap it up. That is my last slide. If I can, I would love to show you the 3-minute film we produced about the projects transforming education. So I don't know, Linda, is there time for that? Okay.
You know, one of the things that I'm going to, because I'm not as smart as you, one of the things that I want to do is reiterate that you went back to South Africa, you got involved in equine work, large animal, and I always find that remarkable because I've wondered how you're kind of petite, are pushing around these large animals.
It's all about technique.
It's all about technique. Okay, right. So anyway, and then you took the other experience that you received and those courses that you weren't sure were going to do much for you, and you took those courses, internalized them, and then created another career for yourself by applying those techniques to these programs for the betterment of the community. Okay, have I done a good job of that? Okay, very good. Okay, so what I would like to do is recognize that effort on your part. I want to thank you very much for returning to us. And what we're going to do today is you're being awarded a Paul Harris Fellow. And so I get to put the pin on you. I don't have the back on it. And of course, it's suitable for framing that you can then put in your office to impress all of the would-be donors and that kind of thing. But we want to thank you very much. And the wine, I think, is sort of like the cherry on the sundae. All right, thank you very much.
Please have some of the pinotage. Have you poured it, Jade? Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I do want to, again, thank you for your wonderful presentation. And I also wanted to let you know that in behalf of you being here today, we're going to make a donation to our local food bank, the Bread of the Mighty, in your name, in recognition for your contributions. So thank you so much.
Thank Thank you very much, everybody. This is a huge privilege, and thank you for the award.
Okay, last couple of things. First of all, the quote of the day. Here's to the corkscrew, a useful key to unlock the storehouse of wit, the treasury of laughter, the front door of fellowship, and the gate of pleasant folly. That's W.E.P. French. And the winning number today is 488. 488. All right, well, hopefully you'll show up. Enjoy the rest of the wine. Thank you.